Hey, what's up everybody? Today is Wednesday, July 1st, and today I'm going to be talking about the PPP, the EIDL, rent, even the stock market. But first, if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with everything going on right now. And also, if you have a chance, please smash that like button. I would really appreciate it. Also, in the comments below, let me know if you had to pivot your business in any way, or if you have any questions about anything going on right now. I'll do my best to answer your comments, and if I can't, if you've been asking me the same thing over and over, try hitting up my Patreon page, because that's where I'll be doing, live Q&As and one-on-one direct chats if you needed further assistance. Okay, so in a shocking move last night, the Senate passed a bill that would extend the deadline for PPP applications through August 8th. So, yesterday was a big deadline to get your PPP apps in and get your PPP app number. And that deadline went and passed, and the Senate decided to vote on a bill that would extend the deadline through August 8th. Now that means that the House still has to vote for the bill, but I think it's looking good, because if it passes the Senate unanimously, I'm sure it will likely pass the House as well. So if you haven't applied for the PPP yet, I would just hang tight, wait for this bill to pass, and then get going on it again, either through Bluevine or through Cabbage or whoever you think you would best qualify for. The intent of extending the deadline is not to use up all the funds of the PPP. As we know, we still have about $130 billion left in that program, but extending it to August 8th will not use up the funds. They intended to do that to give businesses more of an opportunity to apply while they come up with another plan, like a second stimulus package for businesses. And I talked about that in my last video about the prioritized Paycheck Protection Program Act, the P4 Act, that will give businesses a second round of PPP funding as long as they use up the first round. I think they're extending the PPP for businesses to take advantage of that while they come up with a plan for a second stimulus package. The EIDL is still going strong, if you will. There's not even been half of the funds used yet, and the SBA is still paying out loans, still approving loans, and they're definitely still paying out grants. I had some clients this week who received the grants when they applied, a few weeks ago. And yeah, even clients that have applied a long time ago, like mid-April, they got the loans first, but now they're starting to receive the grants too. So it must be two different processes running the loan and the grants. So if you haven't received the grants, just hang tight. And the loan will also come to you soon as well if you haven't received that. It seems like they're really picking up the pace on that. So maybe harass the SBA a little bit, call them up, ask them what their status is. But it seems like they're finally getting their shit together and finally making some good progress there. Now currently the Senate is working on the HEROES Act, the act that the House approved in the Senate's office. They're working on that act to probably pick it apart and make some changes before they vote on it. And, it's just basically a second stimulus check for Americans, and it's got some other things like increased pay for essential workers, more COVID-19 testing resources, all that stuff. But one thing that I hope they cover is rent, because rent and mortgages will be an important aspect in our economy. At the moment, there's a lot of moratoriums out there preventing evictions for tenants. And while that's all nice and good, that still doesn't mean that landlords can file for eviction in the courts. They just can't physically evict them yet. So if tenants are having trouble paying rent, landlords can still move the process along, until the moratoriums end. And when that happens, then the tenants might be screwed. And also there's landlords like deferring rent, or there's, state and city mandates to defer rent. And while that's all nice and good, that doesn't really change the fact that rent is still due. Some cases, if you defer like 2 months of rent, that means in 2 months those rents will be due in bulk. So you have $1,500 a month in rent. If you defer it twice, you're gonna have $3,000 of rent due in 2 months, along with that third month's rent. So you're gonna have $4,500 of rent due. One way some people are adjusting for that is extending the lease term. I think what we really need and what would really help is if lawmakers passed some kind of rental or housing assistance program that would just pay landlords. Yeah, I mean, landlords, I understand they need their rents paid because they're a business too. They got mouths to feed and they got a family to feed. But if everybody starts getting evicted all at once, businesses and individuals, man, that's going to be a disaster for the economy. Especially if businesses are, like restaurants or any retail spaces are just evicted. That means all those businesses are gone. That means the landlords will have to find new tenants. And in commercial real estate, it's not a quick turnaround time. Finding tenants is a long process. So if all that happens, it's going to be a disaster. So I hope there's some form of like big relief for housing assistance. Now, if you are having trouble with housing and rents and mortgages, maybe check with your state and local governments to see if they have any type of assistance or any programs for you out there. Also check with the Department of Housing and Urban Development to see if they have any resources for you. They might have some good tips for you there to navigate through these tough times. And what the hell is going on with the stock market? If you haven't been following, the stock market has been rallying up for the past several weeks, and it's almost at the point that it was before the big crash in March. Okay, it's almost back up there. It's this past week or two, it's been kind of leveling out, but before then, it was climbing in a big way. So what the hell is going on there? So basically, the stock market is not a good representation of the actual economy, because the stock market is just stocks in large companies. Well, the economy is made up of millions and millions of small businesses and employees and all that stuff. So what's going on here? I'll talk about the S&P 500 index for a moment. That index has been rallying pretty big. And one of the main reasons is because some of the top stocks in that index are Amazon, Alphabet, which is the owner of Google, Apple, and Microsoft. And those stocks have been doing tremendously well. And those stocks take up a good portion of that index, which is why the S&P 500 has been climbing so well. But what I think it is, I think it's just an illusion. For some reason, investors think that everything's fine. There's going to be a V-shaped recovery in the stock market. There's going to be, the market's back open, the economy's back open. They think it's going fine. And now as we're seeing more cases spiking, I think I think the economy is going to be headed for more trouble. And I thought this since the beginning of this thing. It's like, we're not in a V-shaped recovery. We need more assistance for business owners. We need more stimulus packages that will last more than just a few months. We need it for at least a year. And now the stock market has got this illusion going on. And I honestly think it's going to crash again, or it's going to start on a downward trend again, just because, we have millions and millions of people in unemployment. And just because a few companies are doing very well, that's not a good representation of the whole market. So once the delusion dies out, I think the market's going to start tumbling again. And now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't invest. Okay, just be wary. Just know that you can't time the market, really. So the best strategy here is to just invest consistently. Invest a few $100s a month or whatever you can each month. So over time, your earnings average out, and whether you have the market crashing or the market going up, your earnings are just balanced out, and so you're usually in a better position than you would be if you tried to time the market. You would be in a better position than you would be even if you time the market perfectly. If you invested consistently, you'd be in the best position there. So if you do follow the stock market, I think that's what's going on. There's just been some overinflated ideals here, and it's not a good representation of the economy. But nonetheless, that's what's going on right now. So I'm going to start doing some collaboration videos. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking to my friend Dave, who's an attorney, about how insurance companies might be able to pay you out if you're a business, if you were shut down, or if you had some interruption due to the pandemic. So we'll be talking a lot about that tomorrow, unless there's a lot of crazy news that comes out, then I have to cover that, obviously. But if not, then that video will be up tomorrow. And that's all I got for today. Thanks again for stopping by. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel and smash that like button. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.